Hello, welcome to another edition of Curtis Jones Writing. I'm reading every chapter of every book I've ever written and posting them here on YouTube. And if I go too slow for you, you want to hear more of the stories quicker, you could go to my curtis-jones-books.squarespace.com, which is my web page, and you could get an overview of almost everything I've written. And you also could get links that will take you to Amazon to purchase these books. And there are there's a video on both this one and on my Yahoo. Yeah, sorry, not Yahoo. My Curtis Jones author page on Facebook that will take you to a seminar that I presented before COVID came along, and did it in all of the several of the libraries, and they recorded it there, and it's available to watch at that link. Uh, if you enjoy what I do, subscribe, like what you see. That helps me with Facebook to keep me up on their site. Share it with others so that they can enjoy it too. Uh, Hit the bell, and you'll be notified each time I post some new video. So enjoy yourself, and I'll start off with chapter 10, get that out of my way. If you remember the other chapters I've been reading, we ended up in a family that had a lot of wanderlust. We went backwards and forth a lot. Anyway, this one starts off chapter 10, Oklahoma again. When we moved back to Modesto, all of us children were very happy, especially my older sister Betty. All the moving around had been very difficult for her. I kind of took it in my stride. The younger children were not bothered by it at all. When we got to Modesto, we moved into the same two-story house that Dad had bought when we left the dairy farm. My room was at the top of the stairs and turned to the left to the end of the hall. My room had a large glass door that opened to a 12-foot drop. There was no deck to step out onto. Dad had put a screen door hook to secure that door. Betty's room was at the other end of the hall. Mary and Peggy had a room between mine and Betty's. They preferred to sleep downstairs with Diane. Betty and I liked the privacy from being upstairs. In the summer, I would open the big door, which did not have a screen, but the two small windows on either side of the door did have screens. It did not keep the bugs out, but it certainly made it cooler upstairs. Our house did not have air conditioning. I did every kind of odd job that I could find to do without telling my father about them. My father liked to take half of any income that was brought into the house by the kids. I learned this from watching my sisters report to Dad what they had earned. I think my mother was kind of partial to me because she never told Dad that I used his lawnmower to earn money. From the time grass needed to be mowed until winter set in, I never reported to Dad any of the money that I earned. I used it to buy my clothes and model airplanes and model cars. My hobby was to build models and enter them in contests. I never won first place in any contest, but I enjoyed entering them just the same. I like the idea of that people would tell me they liked what I did with the model. It gave me a great sense of self esteem. We had been back home in Modesto on Donald Street for about a year when our house burned down. I had more than 100 models on display in my room when our house burned. Dad made me give a list of everything that was in my room when the insurance man asked for it. Dad wondered how I acquired so many models. I simply told him my friend Mike bought them for me. Mike and his family had moved back to the Central Valley as well. His father bought a chicken farm to raise chickens for the meat market. So Mike worked on his father's farm every day after school. We went to the same church, so I got to see Mike every Sunday and every Wednesday. Mike had a half brother named Danny, who was my friend as well. Danny gave me an old Vespa scooter. I played with that scooter all of the time. It was not licensed and should not have been on the road, but I simply drove it around the neighborhood. Aunt Helen and Uncle John moved to California with their kids. They stayed with us in our house for about 2 weeks. They rented a house about a block from where we lived. We kids really liked being close to our favorite cousins. It made life exciting with them. One day, Dad found a large mouse den under the stairs. It sparked an idea. Dad had been wanting to go back to Oklahoma, but Mom did not want to. Neither did we children want to go to Oklahoma. The last time we were there, we lived in a terrible log house. One day in September, after school had started, Dad set his plan in motion. When Friday rolled around, Dad let all of us children spend the night with our friends. Betty was working at the drive-in theater. I had gone to Mike Drury's house. Mary and Peggy and Diane had spent the night with some girls from church that they were friends with. The next morning, I received a call at Mike's house from my mother. She asked if I might be able to spend the night a few days because our house had burned down. When this happened, everyone was outside the house. The fire marshal said that it looked like a mouse had got into some wooden matches and brought and caught its nest on fire under the staircase. Many years later, my father told me that he had set the house on fire for the insurance so we could go back to Oklahoma. When he told me this, I was married and had 3 children already. I owned a house in Oklahoma. It still surprises me to learn that it was not an accident when that tragedy struck. After the house burned, Dad got an insurance settlement and rented a house just out of town to the north of Modesto. Dad had a car, or got a car from a salvage yard and had them take the body off and the motor out and the transmission out of the car. He brought the frame with the wheels and tires out to the farm where we lived. He then proceeded to build a trailer on this car frame. He put a chuck wagon storage on the front end of the trailer. He put sideboards all along the back and ribs over the top so he could put tarps on it. He built a tongue attachment to the front so we could pull it. I have to admit it didn't look half bad. He bought Betty a 1957 Chevy Bel Air for her first car. Betty did not want to go back to Oklahoma, so she ran away with her boyfriend at that time. His name was Lee. He was a fair musician. He worked playing in a band and weddings. One day, Betty went on a date with Lee and did not come home. Dad became frantic, looking for her everywhere. About 2 in the afternoon, Mom got a call asking for some money to buy a tire for the car. Betty told Mom they had run away to get married. They were in Nevada someplace. Mom said she did not want her to get married. She wanted her to come home. Mom sent her some money. Betty and Lee took the money and went to Oklahoma instead. They wanted to have Aunt Helen sign so they could get married. Betty was going to come back as soon as they got married. Betty did get married to Lee Conway, but in California, and Helen wouldn't sign. They came back. Lee took a job on a dairy farm that furnished a house. Mom and Dad and Lee's parents gave them a start of furniture. Betty and Lee started their life on a dairy farm in Oakdale, California. The rest of us children did all we could to help Mom and Dad make ready to move to Oklahoma. The trip went very smoothly. We had no difficulties crossing the western United States. I had turned 15 last August. I wanted my own car so badly I could almost taste it. I would be 16 in 3 months. I was determined to get a car by then. I had a California driver's permit. I would keep it until I could get an Oklahoma driver's license. Dad had learned a lesson from the other trips we had taken. He arranged for a job before he left California with the local cannery. At that time, it was called the Stillwell Canning Company. When we left California, Dad was a diesel mechanic for the Ford Company in Modesto. He was hired as a diesel mechanic for the fleet of trucks that the cannery owned. I was fortunate that Dad started working for the cannery when he did. The cannery was starting a new line of business operating green bean picker machines. It was called Stillwell Harvesters. The biggest part of Dad's duty when he was hired on was to help assemble the harvester machines. They were very complex. Dad was in charge of assembling all of the machines. I think they had 7 harvesters. When they had finished assembling the machines, they put Dad in charge of the crew who would operate the machines. Betty and Lee came to Oklahoma at Dad's request to work operating one of the machines. Betty stayed with us. Lee went with Dad from town to town harvesting green beans for the cannery. He operated the harvesters throughout eastern Oklahoma, southern Kansas, and western Missouri. There were also some bean farms in northwest Arkansas that were harvested by them. Using Dad's old truck was the best tool he had for doing this job. The cannery had put a telephone in Dad's old truck so they could contact him when they needed to. They put everyone up in motels as they traveled harvesting the beans. They would get to come home 1 or 2 days a week as the schedule permitted. Dad was on the road with Lee during the harvest season. Betty became frustrated as a newlywed. About every 2 weeks, they would go up and visit Dad and Lee where they were harvesting, if it was not too far, that is. While this was going on, I took a job with the Stillwell Canning Company. I hand washed the semi trucks and the trailers that the cannery owned. My mother drove me to work at 8 in the morning. I stayed on the job until 5 in the evening when Mom would come pick me up. I was determined to buy a car. These trucks delivered frozen and canned foods all over America from this little town. They were happy to hire me for less than minimum wage to wash their trucks. I was happy to have a job so I could save money to buy a car. Win win. At work, I carried a 16-foot ladder around with me so that I could reach the tops of the trailers and be able to wash the top of the trucks. I did this work all day long, 5 days a week, that whole summer. On a good day, I would wash between 4 and 6 trucks and trailers in my allotted time. Depending on where the trucks had been for their deliveries that week, some trucks were dirtier than others. By I got paid the same for all the trucks whether they were dirty or not. I received a whopping $5 for each truck and trailer that I washed. I couldn't hide what I was earning anymore because Dad had got me this job. I gave about half of my pay to Dad. I kept the rest. Dad believed that if you lived in his house paid when you paid you your way, if you were working, you could not talk him out of that idea. Heaven knows my sisters tried. I saved as much as I could out of what I earned and took home. I would have a car by the end of summer. I looked at a beautiful 1932 Plymouth coupe. The doors opened from the front to the back. The little bitty back window had a window roller that rolled it down. The front had a scoop that would let air flow through the car. I really wanted this car, but the engine had frozen and cracked that winter. I knew I would not have money to fix it because Dad was away. I asked Mom what she thought about the car, if she thought I should continue to look. I looked at many cars during that summer. Every payday, I would cash my check at the bank and give Dad half of the money. I would take the money that was left and put it in a quart canning jar next to my bed. I would count it every day to know when I had enough to buy a car. We lived on top of Workman Mountain, about 15 miles from Stillwell. That is why I needed a ride to work every day and back. I worked hard all summer. By fall, just before school, I had saved, over $150. At the end of summer came, Mom and I looked. Uh, as the end of summer came, Mom and I looked at a 1953 Chevy. Its body was in fair shape and its motor ran. The only wanted $50 for the car. Mom told me I ought to buy this car because I had enough money and I would have some left over for when school started. This was an old Chevy two-door with a six-cylinder engine. I bought it. Mom took me down to get my driver's license in August. I didn't have to worry about buying insurance at that time because there was no law requiring it. I was so excited about having bought my own car. I did not really see the shortcoming in the car that I'd bought. The first problem that I encountered was the car's bench seat. That was a seat where you fold the lean back forward to allow people to crawl into the back seat. The passenger side seat on this car, on my car, was broken. If you are not careful, it would fall back onto the back seat. If you sat carefully, the seat would hold its place. If you moved around, you would be laying with your head on the back seat. The second problem I found with the car was that it had a cracked engine block from water freezing in the motor. Some person had put a product called liquid glass in the motor. If you let it run, it will temporarily seal the crack. The crack was still there, but it did not leak water for the moment. I worried that it might break at any time. It never did while I owned it. The car itself was a two-tone blue with cloth seats. I drove that car all the time. I felt a sense of independence that only comes when you could get out from under your parents' feet. When Dad came in, I told him about the car I had looked at, and he was so disappointed that I did not buy the 1932 Plymouth Coupe. In later years, I thought about it myself. I too was disappointed that I bought the Chevy. You shouldn't cry over spilt milk, though. I had another friend whose father was also a mechanic for the Stillwell Canning Company. He and I were very good friends. His name was Larry. He did not have a car, nor did he have a job, so he could buy one. He and I rode in my car, and he helped buy gas. When school started, I felt very much out of place because I did not dress like everyone else who went to school in Stillwell, Oklahoma. That concludes this chapter, chapter 10. Chapter 11 is 60 hard hours, and this chapter is 60 some pages long, and it's probably going to be in 2 or 3 sessions to get this through. Let's see, 191, 134 to 191. It's a very long chapter, so I will probably do it in 2 or 3 sessions, uh, so that I don't get a dry throat and can't continue to read. I think you'll enjoy that. It's a story about another friend I made at Stillwell High School, and he taught. He asked me to run away with him, and I agreed. Big mistake. And we were gone 60 hours in winter, riding with people driving 100 miles an hour. We survived. We were picked up in New Mexico and sent back to Oklahoma on a bus. But we didn't just go to Oklahoma, we went north into Missouri and then through Kansas into Colorado, Texas, and then out to New Mexico. But it's a very interesting story, and I can't wait to tell that. It's one of my favorites, but I don't know why uh, I ended up doing that, but I did. So I want to let you know about that. God bless you, and like the video if you've enjoyed it.